looking to take an operation that's losing them, 15% per order that they pick and turn it back to a 5 to 10% operation, which is what they see in their retail stores. We ruthlessly study where labor is being spent in the facility and the efficiency of that labor so that we understand which processes are right to automate and which processes are not right to automate, all with the guise of driving, as you rightly said, an effective business case for our clients.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Logistics Top Startup Series. We've mapped well over 2,000 companies in the logistics industry. Globally, we've written over 180-page reports, and our goal is to identify what we think are some of the best founders, technology companies, and investors in the world within logistics. And we're here with one of them, Mitchell Freeman. He's the CFO and CSO of Takeoff Technologies. Mitchell, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
Absolutely. For those of you who are not familiar with Takeoff Technologies, they are robotics, microfilament technology company. They have done incredible strides so far. They've raised well over 150 million. Not only have you expanded across the United States, but now you're global as well. We've put them within the robotics category within our industry report. They're one of the best, stood out by far, over 90 plus companies within that category. So it's an absolute honor to be here with you, Mitchell. Before we jump into questions, Mitchell, you actually provided us with a great video that showcases who is Takeoff Technologies. So let's jump into the video first, and then we'll jump into questions. Sounds good?
Sounds great.
We launched Takeoff with a simple but ambitious vision to create the world's first micro-fulfillment center. What if we could harness the power of automated fulfillment and unleash it at the local level? How would online grocery change if we could embed micro-fulfillment centers in the backs of grocery stores?
Up until now, grocers were faced with a choice: lose money or charge the customer higher prices. We knew if you took automation, shrunk it down, and put it in the back of a retail store, you'd be able to get the efficiencies of automation and the speed to the customer that the customer wants. And so that's really the idea and the concept behind micro-fulfillment.
By 2018, we launched the world's first robotic supermarket. No more lines or browsing the aisles. Customers could now order their groceries online and have food in their kitchen within hours. How? With Takeoff's end-to-end micro-fulfillment ecosystem. We didn't stop at a robotic fulfillment center. We developed a robust and adaptable software platform to facilitate fulfillment and streamline e-grocery from start to finish. Our seamless user experience and hyper-local model make it easy to get your products into your shoppers' hands, from warehouse to doorstep in a few simple clicks.
Bringing a tote to a pick station is only part of the equation. You also need artificial intelligence, orchestration, and software that allows you to make sure that the right item is picked at the right time. And you need to stitch data from the website experience all the way through to the delivery experience. And that software layer is what's at the heart of Takeoff and what is at the heart of enabling a micro-fulfillment experience. This industry-leading position allows us to stay on the cutting edge of micro-fulfillment and deliver exceptional value to our customers.
Today, Takeoff is proud to be the worldwide leader in micro-fulfillment solutions. With top-tier grocery partners across multiple continents, we're reimagining the grocery experience from start to finish. And the best part? We're just getting started. The future of e-grocery is happening now. Learn more at takeoff.com.
But great, Mitchell, thank you so much for the video. I really appreciate it. Absolutely fantastic what you guys built. Before we even go into the nitty-gritties of the unique aspects of the company, you guys started in 2016. I'm curious, is there a background of why you guys started?
Yeah, sure. The thesis of the company really came from some work that our founders did. Jose and Max were doing at HBS, where they met Mick Mounds, who was the former CEO of Kiva Robotics, now Amazon Robotics. And in discussions with them and understanding the true potential of robotics and their experience in the grocery channel, they realized that there is a very, very real need in e-groceries or online groceries for efficiency. And by taking robotic systems that are large in nature, but are able to deliver a tremendous productivity, labor productivity, and by shrinking it down into the back of a grocery store, you're able to achieve both a very fast pick rate, a very productive pick rate, and keep the product very close or the order very close to the customer. Those two things is exactly what the grocery industry needs as it moves online. And so that was the fundamental thesis of Takeoff. If I can shrink robotics and co-locate it with the store and leverage the infrastructure of the store, and as well as delivering blazingly fast pick speeds and the orchestration around it, then I can deliver a business case that's actually better than the economics of the grocery store itself. And it's the only way that you can realistically do that today in e-groceries.
Interesting point. Actually, we're going to touch on it a little bit later on the economics portion, but just for the audience standpoint, for simplicity, when you walk up to a grocery retailer, what do you actually give to them? I know there's the hardware, the software component. I feel like there's a lot more dynamics that go into it. So as it was a grocery retailer, what do I receive when I work with Takeoff Tech?
So typically when we work with a grocery retailer, we meet them at a point in their journey where they have been playing around with e-groceries, experimenting with different models, dark store models, in-store picking processes, and they've come to the conclusion that you just cannot make the economics work. To make this very concrete for the viewers, when you go to a grocery store, if you were to go and pick an order or go and shop an order and walk out and take it home, you do two parts of the supply chain for free. You pick the order and then you pack and ship the order. And if you pay someone to do that in a manual picking operation, you end up incurring a lot of costs. So what Takeoff sells to our customers, or we deploy to our customers, is a piece of robotics that sits in about 10,000 square feet in the back of a grocery store. And we wrap around that robotics pieces of software that interface with various different online channels that the grocer has, as well as the store-based picking that they may have and darkroom picking that sits next to the robotics. And we orchestrate all of the activity within that facility so that if you were to go online at one of our grocer's websites and order an online order, instead of sending a human being to run around the grocery store and pick it, that order can go to this combination of robotics and a dark warehouse and pick an order in about 6 minutes versus an hour, and do it with about a tenth of the labor that would be required if you were to pick it manually. And so what we sell is productivity. What we deliver to our clients at the moment is productivity, and productivity that allows them to make online groceries a profitable value proposition for their consumers, for grocery shoppers.
You know, not only the system that you built, how convenient that is for grocery stores where they, don't have to set up new infrastructure, new building, anything else that fits already within their ecosystem, interfaces exactly with the customers that already have that, existing website or partners. But I'm assuming it's a pretty easy transition working with your technology and training a lot of the staff within the retail stores how to pick and pack and fulfill orders. Probably much easier than what they did in the past.
Yeah, it's interesting. Part of the design constraints that we try and solve within our product team is to make this solution, this micro fulfillment solution, or this hyperlocal fulfillment solution extremely easy so that anyone can walk off of the street and walk up to a pick station and with some very basic training would be able to be relatively productive. Yes, there are secrets on how to maximize productivity and how to do all of the processes very, very quickly, but the software and the interfaces are designed such that a frontline worker who's going to go and pick and pack orders and walk up to a pick station or to the manual picking area and be productive. An MFC manager who's trying to manage the operation has a single pane of glass that they can use to orchestrate the facility. And the back offices of a grocery store that are looking to manage the assortment that they're presenting online and match that to the inventory that they have in these facilities are able to do that work. And so simplicity is key, particularly as we start to think about, as you were saying, not just becoming a company with a few pilots, but having now upwards of 22, 23 MFCs now globally and starting to scale quite aggressively with some of our clients. Simplicity and being able to replicate that model is very, very important, as you'd imagine.
Congrats on the 23 micro fulfillment centers to date. That's absolutely incredible what you've done, because it's kind of funny that you talk about this, especially within robotic fulfillment. There is a lot of that prototype phase, and it gets a little bit harder to get into that, commercially viable product. And actually this kind of transitions to my next question, which was, everybody is very excited about the idea of robotic fulfillment because it promises a lot, right? You get improved costs, you get speed, You get better quality. I mean, I am happy about companies like yourself coming to play because now you don't get the wrong products as an end customer when you have somebody go and pick and pack stuff for you at the store. But then there's always been the question and the pushback on whether or not companies within the robotics space can balance the economics, how much it costs to put in a robotics fulfillment system, how much, orders that they can push through a day. Does that cost actually get low enough where it makes sense for a grocery store or a retailer to invest time or capital or money, or provide their space for these companies? And maybe you want to speak on some of this economics challenge that exists in the space and how you guys have overcome that.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, Kyle, because you're right. You could create perfect automation. The price tag would be something that would not be viable, but you could do that. And likewise, you could do zero automation and struggle to make a business case. Part of the art of what we've done is we've been designing these hyperlocal facilities, these micro fulfillment facilities, is to figure out what is the right amount of automation to put into a facility, the right threshold of automation, if you will. And it turns out that it is expensive to over automate and it is expensive to under automate. And so what we've created is a robotic system that can go into a grocery store. It delivers about a 35 to 40% IRR, return on cash investment for our grocery retailers, or about a 2.5 to 3 year payback. And it is not all the bells and whistles of automation. Actually, the art of getting the robotic system to deliver a real business case fundamentally boils down to three things. The first, as you'd imagine, is world-class hardware, world-class robotics, the servo motors and the shuttles that do all of the moving of the goods. And we're very fortunate to be partnering with a phenomenal company in the delivery of those systems. But the two things that people typically overlook that are equally, if not more important to deliver that real business case that our grocers want to see, a software orchestration layer that allows you to decide which products to put in which pick zones in the automation versus in a dark wareroom, and how to orchestrate the facility, how to manage the labor within the facility so that you are never overstaffing a facility, et cetera, et cetera. Software becomes a really, really important pillar, which is what we spend all of our time focusing on, leaving the amazing robotics to our partner now. And then the operational know-how. These are very different motions for a grocery retailer to go through. Typically, a grocery retailer operates in a retail environment, and they know how to run a checkout. They know how to pack a store, pack a shelf. They know how to run a retail operation. This is actually a warehouse operation. And it uses a lot of the concepts of a traditional large-scale warehouse, just shrunk down to be very, very small. And so there's a lot of training on the processes. How do you get the right pick rates out of the machine? How do you serve the next customer in the process to maximize efficiency? How do you set the right targets and help to coach associates to the right productivity rates without being overbearing and providing them a job that's enjoyable as well? So those three pillars are all important to put together. And it's those three in harmony that deliver the type of business case that we are. The right level of affordable automation, very, very sophisticated machine learning or AI driven software to make decisions about what product goes where and what people go where. And then coaching on the process or a service layer, if you will. That's the formula that we've found that's been extremely successful in our deployment so far.
And so a lot of the improvements that you've been able to make, especially probably from a labor perspective and fulfillment and delivery, is kind of merging the two worlds. I like what you said, over automation, well, it's too difficult, complex, and under automation, it doesn't make sense. And, that was one of the most unique aspects, I think, about what you guys have done, is because you've merged, kind of this robotic autonomous fulfillment center, but you still have, pick and pack stations. Humans are still interacting with the system. It's not completely, moved out of the mix. You see, those within this space going many different directions. You have those that are trying to go after completely autonomous, no human touch. But I mean, it's really difficult to get there. And then you have the other side where you still have just like, the floor robots that push around shelves. It's just not really going to get to that probably the scale that you need, especially for the grocery use case. So, it's really interesting that you guys, found that sweet spot and it's working for you guys, especially, you're in 23 plus locations at this point. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, we have a commanding share so far of the micro fulfillment centers that are out there. But let's be very clear, this is a nascent market and it is evolving at an incredible pace. And, we always remind ourselves here to be ever vigilant, to continue to find the next layer of productivity and the next layer of opportunity for our clients. At the end of the day, what our clients are looking to buy first and foremost is efficiency and a P&L. They're looking to take an operation that's losing them, 15% per order that they take, and turn it back to a 5 to 10% operation, which is what they see in their retail stores. And we at Takeoff are organized and spend our time laser focused on many elements of that equation. We ruthlessly study where labor is being spent in the facility and the efficiency of that labor so that we understand which processes are right to automate and which processes are not right to automate, all with the guise of driving, as you rightly said, an effective business case for our clients. Because at the end of the day, to make a micro fulfillment center work in a profitable way, you need to deliver just enough automation. And then you need to be able to support that automation in a very distributed environment. And so you need to build the support network around these centers that allow them to be maintained and operated efficiently when there are many sites in many different locations versus one big facility thrown on the outskirts of the city. It's a very different problem to solve and something that we spend all of our time trying to solve because that's what enables micro fulfillment to really deliver on its promise.
Why did you guys want to start with grocery as the use case? And do you guys have plans to move outwards to different use cases, maybe convenience store, maybe, larger retail, variety, SKUs? Just curious, what do you see as the direction kind of going forward?
So micro fulfillment, a term that's being coined in and around when we started Takeoff, or really, if you understand the use case that's being delivered to a shopper, which is hyperlocal fulfillment or very quick delivery of product, is a use case that fits some, but not all parts of retail. To give you a sense, the retail industry is about $15 trillion worldwide. About half of that is grocery. There's convenience and drugstores and other parts of retail as well that are nearby adjacent. And when you're trying to build a product that delivers efficient fulfillment very, very close to the end customer so that you can get it to them quickly, there are certain traits that you would look for in a market. One would be the labor cost, obviously labor arbitrage and automation. Higher labor makes automation more attractive. You look for a complex environment where customers demand relatively immediate service. And the grocery industry actually has a lot of these things. It has a typical grocery store has 35,000 SKUs, many different temperatures. Some things are toxic and can't be put with food. There are chemicals that can't be mixed with each other. There's raw goods. If you think about a grocery aisle and you think about the property of every single product around the store, you come to realize, oh my goodness, there is an incredible amount of complexity within all of those products. Eggs, they break. Cheese goes off, milk spoils, et cetera, et cetera. And the grocery consumer really wants two things. They want, they've wanted these things since the beginning of days. They want a low price because this is a consumer staple. It's very core to most households' budget. And so most consumers cannot afford or are unwilling to afford extremely expensive premiums for such a consumer staple product. And they want it relatively quickly. In fact, Instacart and some of the other platforms, Whole Foods as well, started to set the market with a 2-hour delivery promise. And now you're seeing as quick as 30-minute delivery promises for various different types of purchases. And so us as consumers are being trained both through our going to the grocery store, which is just around the block experience in a traditional world, and in an e-commerce world to have our grocery products delivered to us very, very quickly at very reasonable prices. And so that's why we started in grocery, a large market with a lot of the properties that make hyperlocal fulfillment attractive to deploy there. There are other verticals, convenience you've mentioned. Getting fresh into convenience stores is a cross-channel opportunity that is challenging and tricky for those retailers. Some elements of cosmetics and some elements of other types of retail segments are attractive for micro fulfillment, but not all. People don't need a pair of sneakers necessarily in 2 hours. or they don't need their couch in 2 hours. And so there are other parts of retail where we don't think that micro fulfillment is the right solution. But given the complexity of groceries and the speed that the consumer demands in groceries, that's why we started there. And it continues to be forecasted to be the major area of where micro fulfillment will be deployed in the coming years.
Very exciting. And it makes sense. I mean, grocery is, it seems like one of the most challenging businesses to run because it is so complex and it's so challenging and the margins are so slim and consumers have such high expectations. Products go bad so quickly. It's it's a fun world to be in, and a world where you could easily lose your hair pretty quickly.
Correct. That's right. And hidden within that complexity is the art of takeoff, right? Being able to to fulfill that complex an environment within a few minutes, to fulfill that order within a few minutes with a tenth of the labor of a manual picking operation is no small feat. And it's very easy to be enamored by robots who are moving back and forth and the speed at which the commotion in the MFC operates. But the heart of the MFC, at least what we believe at Takeoff, is in a lot of the software orchestration. And we've spent 4 or 5 years now building that logic to be able to deliver real business cases to our clients. And it's starting to work. We're seeing tremendous results and we're very excited for what the future can bring.
Well, you guys are kind of in an interesting position today, from my understanding. You enable existing grocery retailers with just fulfillment operations and ensuring that they can not only become profitable with doing it, grocery delivery, but also have a sustainable method of doing it. Do you guys actually intend to expand outwards yourself? Meaning, are you guys potentially going to start your own grocery marketplace ordering platform, or do you guys actually intend to launch your own fulfillment centers and almost like grocery warehouses that you can cater to customers in different areas?
It's a really, really good question. Some of this stuff we've dabbled in already, but we still are forming our broader ecosystem strategy. We do have a white label, for example, website product that we've provided to a retailer to allow them to get online when they were unable to do that through their own owned properties. And we have considered whether we should be deploying sites or what have you. The conclusion that we've come to so far, given that we're Takeoff and we're a startup and resources are limited, is delivering hyperlocal, efficient hyperlocal fulfillment for our clients, be them grocery retailers or platforms or parts of the ecosystem, is a very core part of our value proposition. And there's a tremendous amount of runway in just doing that well. To give you a sense, some forecasts say there will be 7,500 MFCs in 5-6 years. You could easily imagine 10 to 20,000 worldwide in a 10-year time period. And you don't need to have, the majority of that to be a successful business. Just having a portion of that is incredibly valuable to us, obviously, as a business, and then to our customers in our ability to help them solve the problems that they're trying to. That being said, we do believe that the grocery market will start to evolve a little bit more around the concept of an ecosystem, and that the MFC or nodes of MFCs, a network of MFCs, creates a tremendous amount of value, as well as bringing other parts of the grocery ecosystem in to partner with us. So we partner with robotics companies today. There are other technologies that we can partner with that bring into the ecosystem. I mentioned platforms before. We're starting discussions with them to try and bring that volume into the fulfillment ecosystem. There are a lot of exciting things that you can do. The thing that we keep on reminding ourselves is how important it is to stay vigilant on delivering your customer needs and doing that very, very well, so that you continue to focus on your core business, if you will, and maximize the value there. And that's certainly part of the phase of where we're at right now. Not to say we don't explore the other options, but that efficient fulfillment is at the core of what we do. And there's a tremendous amount of opportunity just in that zip code alone.
You're at 23 stores or locations today. We got up to 10,000. So it totally makes sense. This is a great space to stay and play in. And no, it's just such an incredible and interesting dynamic that, what you already do and how you enable grocery stores and existing retailers, to, I think, really evolve into this new ecosystem of consumer on-demand services across the world. I mean, and you guys are already catering to that. You are globally. I think you're in Asia, you're in Europe, you're in US. I don't know if you're in Latin America yet. I'm sure you
No.
planned.
About to be.
You're right. But I wanted to transition now to more general questions about just the market and ecosystem.
Sure.
I'm just curious to get your thoughts. I know we might be backtracking a little bit here, but grocery delivery has been around for quite a long time, decades. I still remember my mother used to order frozen meatballs from the guy who would drive the truck around to different neighborhoods. Why has delivery become such a big burden for grocery companies or retailers? And what's kind of changed from 10, 20 years ago to today?
You're right. The idea of grocery delivery has been around since webvan and the dot-com eras, and probably well before that as well. What has been very difficult to do for the longest time is do it economically. And so typically what a lot of retailers have seen was that if they are holding prices to the same as store, so they're not able to charge a premium for groceries, which is a premise that many grocers have had, and you try and go online, it can be very, very difficult without sophisticated automation or sophisticated processes to be able to make a buck doing it. In fact, you tend to lose a lot of money. We saw the very, very early beginnings of e-commerce penetration come right about when we started Takeoff. Penetration at that point in time in the US of groceries, e-groceries, of total groceries was less than 2%. It was very, very small. And you had some companies starting to blaze the path, Instacart, Whole Foods, with Amazon being another, really backed on the premise that there was a segment of customers that were willing to pay for the convenience of someone else to do the shopping for you. And they're very successful. They're very admirable companies. They've done an amazing job starting to teach the consumer that they can expect a high quality product and that they can get it delivered relatively promptly, and doing it in a way, in this case, by charging higher prices, where the grocer still is able to make a profit as well. And so as penetration has increased and increased and increased, the opportunity to continue to increase price, we believe you will start to see some pressure there. That not every person in suburban America or in suburban Europe is able to pay a 30 or 40% premium just to have their groceries delivered. They will not be able to afford that. And so we believe that we'll see compression back towards same store prices for a large swath of people coming online. And that will require very efficient fulfillment mechanisms and enter hence the MFC. COVID, I know you had a question where you wanted to anticipate, though. We'll talk about anticipate what happened with COVID. COVID has really created an interesting dynamic in e-groceries. So we were plodding along a regular penetration curve, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and everybody was forced to consider making a change in their shopping behavior. The alternative was to potentially die going to the store, or at least that's what people thought, in March when COVID first started. So a lot of people started to try online groceries. And what we saw was a tremendous increase in online penetration across the entire industry. And it was done in a way that was just grocers and the platforms fighting to keep up with the demand that COVID has generated. Now, interestingly, that is a one-time change in behavior that the entire industry benefited from. When you go look at some of consulting firms like Bain's and the McKinseys of the world who publish studies on this stuff, you'll see that actually change in behavior is expected to stick. People who have now got accustomed to buying groceries online will likely continue to buy some groceries, not all, but some groceries online. And so the penetration will continue to go from where we left off with COVID. So you saw this amazing surge, a 5 to 8 year increase in adoption over the course of several months. Now, and there are some nuances as well. That's great. Everyone, 10% of people are buying online. I still remember the days of COVID when I walked into a grocery store and the shelves were empty. And I remember how difficult it was to get a delivery slot when I went onto an online website. And so that incredible surge in demand, coupled with the store itself being in a pretty vulnerable state, really vacuumed all of the attention in the industry to serving online demand, because that is clearly a growth engine, and keeping the store stocked so that I can stay open for business. As now this story has matured over the last 2 years, we've seen people realize that efficiency is again becoming a huge priority. They're not faced with 3% of their goods being online, losing $20 an order. It's now 13% of their goods online, losing $20 an order and starting to become a pretty problematic economic equation. We're seeing a tremendous amount of demand with customers engaging us to explore our solutions for that very reason.
It's crazy how the pandemic has completely shifted dynamics of the whole digital economy, especially for, grocery stores must be just pulling their hair out just for understanding. I mean, it's a good problem to have, the deal flow, but then, I think you put it in a really great perspective. Majority of your products you're selling at a loss online, then how do you still meet that demand with a real business model that works, especially when you're already in a very, very low margin business. So it's exciting to see you kind of step up to the plate to take on that challenge and help retailers kind of evolve with this transition to the digital economy, but also meet the needs of what consumers are demanding, because fast, cheap, and high quality delivery would be fantastic. And speaking as a consumer, because so far it's pretty.
What everybody wants. And then all of our customer research, we see the same thing. We do a lot of research, not just on what our clients want, but what the shopper wants. And they want fast and cheap. And they want cheap more than anything else, or at least affordable is probably a better word. And I think that's because food, like it or not, is something that we all need to eat. It's something we all need to survive. It's a very fundamental part of our daily lives, but it's also expensive. It's a large portion of what we spend on a weekly or monthly basis. And so people, stretched, whose budgets are being stretched right now, as we see with increase of gas prices, we hear the uproar about $1 or $2 increase in gas prices. That's just symptomatic of how little wiggle room families have in their budget and how little they can tolerate price increases in very, very core fundamental parts of their spending.
One of the things that we kind of touched on, though, throughout the conversation today, but it's something that we've noticed when we looked at this whole landscape of logistics companies and, kind of see the evolution across every single category. It seems like, logistics enterprises are kind of merging or blending with marketplaces. Obviously, if you can own the order management flow, it's a huge value from a logistics services standpoint. But then if you can also own the logistic infrastructure or services and solutions that is far superior than everybody else, you can give a much better experience to the end consumer in fulfilling that order. And it seems like companies are kind of combining those two worlds into one. And I look at you guys and that kind of first stepping stone is combining that premier fulfillment services and advanced logistics technology truly into retail stores and in marketplaces, and enabling grocery stores to have their own, you provide the white label mobile application or a tool so that their customers can order directly from their stores. And I think that, it just seems like it's an evolution of the industry. What is your thoughts on this? Do you agree, disagree? Do you feel the same sentiment?
I think we're seeing a really interesting time where fulfillment and logistics and being able to do that well are not just becoming a cost optimization part of the e-commerce supply chain. Is no longer being seen as, how do I just take the next 10% of cost out of my supply chain, but how can I use a competitive cost position as a true strategic advantage to drive growth, to drive advantages in pricing, drive advantages in customer value proposition and speed and what have you. And that's exactly why we are where we are. We're doing what we're doing here at Takeoff. We believe that intersection of efficient fulfillment, very close to the customer, is a huge unlock, a huge enabler to the grocery industry. And then we're in the very, very early innings of exploring just how far this concept of hyperlocal fulfillment can really go.
I totally agree. Well, I have one last question for you, Mitch. I appreciate you taking so much time to chat with me again. It's an honor. Just curious, where do you think the future of your company is going, or where is the industry? What do you see that other people don't?
I wish I had a perfect crystal ball. I'd probably make a lot of money if I had that, but it's a very exciting space to be. The challenge that we see in micro fulfillment, we see for our business, is just how fast innovation is occurring and just how new and nascent this industry is. We believe that delivering very profitable, very cost-effective automation close to the customer, doing everything that's required to deliver that business case, has a very, very long runway ahead of it. And so we continue to innovate on different formats, on different operational paradigms, on different types of data analysis and what have you. in our platform and in our services to drive that core value proposition. And as we talked a little bit before, there's thousands of MFCs that can be deployed just on that premise alone. Then I believe that there's more opportunity as you start to look at things that are nearby in various different adjacencies. There are different verticals where this concept can apply. There are different sizes where this concept can apply as well. We're currently exploring even smaller formats to be able to hit limited SKU business case. And there are various other adjacencies that make a ton of sense to wrap in and around very efficient fulfillment ecosystem to be able to delight shoppers and hence delight our retail clients. And so we believe we're just in the very, very early innings here. 22, 23 MFCs is just the startup, and there is a lot more to come. And we're very excited to be part of that journey.
It's exciting to watch. And it's going to be really exciting to see how you evolve from 23 to 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 fulfillment centers. It's going to be an exciting ride. But Mitch, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you so much. Just as a recap for the audience, this is the Logistic Top to Top Startup Series. We've looked at well over 2,000 companies, wrote a 180-page report. The goal is to identify what we think are some of the best logistics companies in the world. You got to see why Takeoff Technologies is one of them today. You guys are a really impressive company that's figured out what is the appropriate amount of automation when it comes into fulfillment and tackling probably one of the most complex problems within delivery for an end consumer, and that's grocery. Being able to deal with all the dynamics of working with complex products, demanding customers, low margin business, and being able to succeed in that. And you're already at 23 different stores today, and we're going to see you jump up to 1,000 probably next year. And, sky's the limit. So Mitch, I really appreciate you taking the time. Before I close out, is there anything else that you want to mention or share with the audience?
No, just thrilled to be here today, Kyle, to be able to share our story. And it was a real pleasure talking with you as well.